Last Thanksgiving, I had been visiting family out of town, a trip I make every year. My parents still live in the house that I grew up in, but I moved out over 10 years ago. My town was about a 4-hour drive away with good traffic. I left my family's place in the late afternoon, expecting to beat the evening rush, but as luck would have it, the city's roads were clogged with vehicles. By the time I hit the highway leading to my town, it was already dark. By then, traffic was sparse on the highway. It was a relief compared to the stop-and-go traffic leading out of the city. I live in a smaller town than my parents', so the highway I take is not as busy. It was almost empty for most of my trip, save for the few occasional cars that zoomed past. When I was about an hour and a half from home, I noticed a truck behind me. It was a dark pickup, and it looked newer. It was following me a bit too closely. At first, I tried to ignore it, thinking the driver would eventually pass, but he didn't. Instead, he seemed to be deliberately tailgating me. His headlights were glaring in my rearview mirror. His truck had intensely bright lights. I almost thought he had his high beams on, not quite, but almost. We continued on like that for a few minutes. I was watching in my rearview mirror, hoping he would back off or pass me, but that didn't happen. Eventually, he switched on his brights. The intense light blinded me, making it nearly impossible to see the road ahead. I felt a surge of fear because I thought I was going to crash. I had no idea who that person was or what he wanted. To avoid any trouble, I decided to pull over and let him pass. There really wasn't anything I could do other than that. It was so bright. I eased my car onto the shoulder of the road, expecting the truck to continue on its way. Instead, it pulled over too, stopping right behind me. I saw a man get out of the truck. He was large, but I couldn't tell much else. If I had any sense, I would have driven away, but I was still trying to let my eyes adjust to the light and didn't think I could see properly. As he started walking towards my car, every instinct in me screamed that he was bad news. I remembered the pistol I legally carried for protection. I had never used it before, not outside of a shooting range, but as the man got closer, I felt compelled to take it out of the glove compartment. I hoped just having it out would be enough to scare him off. The man reached my car and started banging on the window, yelling something incoherent. His face was red with anger, but I still don't know why. I held the pistol out of sight, but with an easy reach. I hoped he would just leave, but he didn't. That's when things took a turn for the worse. In a quick movement, the man pulled out a gun of his own. The situation was spiraling out of control, and I had no idea how it had come to this. I had to make a split-second decision. As he raised his gun towards me, I fired a single shot through my window. The sound of the gunshot was deafening in my car. I couldn't tell if the bullet had hit him, but he staggered back. Seizing the moment, I slammed my foot on the gas pedal and sped away. As I drove, I kept watching my rearview mirror, but the truck never appeared again. I honestly can't remember how far I drove, but eventually I pulled over and tried to compose myself. I just fired my gun at someone. The weight of that realization was crushing. I called the police from the shoulder of the highway. They asked me to stay where I was and wait. As I sat there on the side of the road, I replayed the incident over and over in my mind. Even though I knew I was right, I was still praying that nobody was hurt. The police arrived, and I explained everything to them. They took my pistol and told me to stay in the car. I felt numb. After about half an hour, I was free to go. Later, I learned the man had also called the police, claiming that I had assaulted him, and it turned into a complicated situation, his word against mine. He wasn't hit by my shot, something I was profoundly relieved to hear. Despite what I told the police, there were no charges filed against either of us. The police concluded that there was insufficient evidence to proceed with any criminal case. I was questioned extensively, but in the end, it seemed like a stalemate. I had been prepared to defend myself, but I never imagined that I would be in a situation where I had to use my gun. In my opinion, the guy in the truck was trying to rob me. That's what I think, because there was no reason for him to do what he did before we stopped. I wasn't driving like a jerk, and I didn't do anything to him. There is simply no other explanation for it. Although it was a tough experience, I'm glad to put it behind me. The reality is, it could have gone much worse. I don't even want to think about what could have happened if I'd hit him. I may have lost my freedom for a long time. Also, I could have been charged for discharging my firearm where I did. It was definitely illegal to do that in the area. They let me off, though, because of self-defense. I was only a little over an hour from my town, so I'm worried that I'll run into the man in the truck again sometime. But that hasn't happened yet. It's been just over a year, so it's still possible.